So, without strategy, change is merely substitution, not evolution. And evolution happens when your strategy is no longer static, but remains fluid to respond in these rapidly changing dynamics in the marketplace. So Gyasi, did healthcare providers embrace the opportunity the pandemic created to become more reinvention ready?
No. The reason that we failed, and I'm putting in, including myself in that mix, because I'm complicit. I've been in healthcare for about 25 years. So the reason that the healthcare system almost broke during COVID for those, call it 2.5 years from March of 2020 to roughly, October of 22. Yeah, today. Yeah, exactly. Because most people think that it was just an influx of sick people. That wasn't it, in my opinion. It was an influx of well people into a system that was already broken. And healthcare, as most of you know, is the largest sector in our nation's economy. We don't partner. We're kind of siloed, and we're continuing to do that even post-pandemic. So in a word, no, we've got work to do.
So let's talk a little bit more about that, Ruth. How do you drive industry change externally versus internally? Or how do you do it concurrently?
Well, certainly we have started out by listening to customers. I mean, that's a lot of what we've talked about up here, is where we've talked about it across each of the panels. But most of what we spend our time on now is what are the ways we can look across all of those friction points, whether it's how are we getting through, retention through a first course, through a third course, how do we, just simplify and take away the tasks that are about service, so that students can focus on the education. And that's most of what we've done. I feel like we stand apart because we put so much emphasis on this passionate, student-driven purpose.
Shelly, what are the 3 barriers that you believe are for industry transformation? What gets in the way?
Well, I don't want to be glib about this. Certainly in healthcare, in education, you have conservative nature, you have compliance and regulatory things that can make it hard. But I would distill it down to really one thing, and that's leadership. Leadership is what is failing these companies, these institutions from changing. So it's a lot of pressure, but it requires very specific leadership. And that's what we have to get right. And thank you for being a catalyst in driving leadership change and thinking about personalization. If anybody walks out here today thinking that the individuals in your company are not imperative to your strategy or your ability to survive disruptive change, you are asleep at the wheel. So we have to take this back into our organizations and make the people at the heart of it. And that's not easy to do. But if you show up with authenticity and a purpose and a mission, and you can get them to buy into that emotionally and figure out, what's their who or their why to why they're doing the job, right? They have to feel connected to it, make the job very clear, and all of it has to run on a foundation of trust. We can talk about that for days.
Gyasi, what are the top 5 opportunities for disruptive growth in healthcare?
I'll take a page from Shelly's book here and maybe distill it to 2. And it's exactly what Ruth and Shelly have already said. One is there is just tremendous friction throughout healthcare. If any of you have experienced the system lately or during the pandemic, heaven forbid, or even prior, accessing healthcare is difficult, even if you have means, right? The friction exists because there's money in the medicine, not in the cure. So what you're doing to break that friction, I think, is needed. So that's number 1. Number 2, I completely agree with Shelly. It is a leadership. And I'll even go further and say it's a lack of courage to be the catalyst for leading organizations, knowing we know what to do. We know what to solve for. We know who to partner with. It's just a matter of we're sort of feeding our traditions and not feeding our destiny.
We talked about earlier, Gyasi, how the biggest challenge right now is moving from the what to the how. And I think disruptive growth begins with knowing how we aim to get to where we want to go.